OK, well, the Prime Minister has attacked Liberal leader Peter Dutton today, calling him an angry Eeyore. The reference, a nod to the donkey from Winnie-the-Pooh. Now, clearly, we've all heard worse insults. We're not children, I get it. But is this really the kind of friendly and polite parliament the PM promised? And joining me to unpack this and more stuff of substance, I promise, is Shadow Health Minister Anne Ruston. And thank you so much for joining me. First of all, what did you think about the Prime Minister's comments regarding the opposition leader?
Well, as my mum always says to me, that if you have to stoop so low as to start using stupid insults like that, then it shows that you really aren't across your subject. I mean, it really reflects very badly, I think, on the Prime Minister.
Can I tell you, I heard him earlier saying that all the opposition leader does is oppose everything and say no, but this is very sad. I never thought I'd be saying this. The official description of Eeyore online says that, look, he's reluctant to go along with plans or adventures, but does not oppose them because he believes it to be futile to try. I certainly wouldn't describe the opposition leader in that way.
No, well, neither would I, and I would think that many Australians wouldn't either, because, I mean, we have got an opposition leader who is doing the job that he is there to do, and that is to question the policies of the government, to question the policies of the Prime Minister, to make sure that Australians have got the information they need when they're being asked to make decisions about things. And I mean, obviously, in relation to the voice there, we're changing our constitution. Nothing could be more important in terms of a decision that Australians have got to make. So, I mean, I think it's pretty disingenuous of the Prime Minister to be suggesting that just because the Prime Minister's the opposition leader's asking some questions that, somehow he's going to liken him to, a nursery rhyme character.
Yeah, it's a bit bizarre, isn't it? Now, tomorrow's the Aston by-election following the resignation of Alan Tudge. Now, the PM today conceded Liberal candidate Roshena Campbell should win. Is that what you think will occur? And secondly, do you think this is a referendum on Peter Dutton's leadership of the Liberal Party, as has been speculated?
Look, this is a Victorian by-election, and obviously the issues of Victoria and the issues of Aston will be the things that the people in Aston will be voting on. There's no doubt that Roshena Campbell is a really, really good candidate. I spent some time out door knocking with her, and she's a phenomenal force, and she would make an extraordinary contribution if the people of Aston saw fit to put her into the parliament. But, it's tough. It's really tough. By-elections are always very tough and often will swing against the incumbent. But, I think Roshena's got a lot to offer, and she's worked very hard, spoken to a lot of people in her electorate with the time that she had available to her. So I'm really hopeful we'll see Roshena in the parliament. But, it's a tough environment out there at the moment, as we saw last weekend in New South Wales.
Oh, absolutely it is. Now, the government wants to raise wages in line with inflation for our lowest paid workers, but seem reluctant to actually say so. Now, they've made a submission to the Fair Work Commission today, but they're refusing to confirm an exact figure. Here's Tony Burke.
We do not want low-paid workers to go backwards. That's the frame. That's the answer. You can ask it 7 or 8 different ways, but that is the answer and that is the position.
That is the most explicit way we can ask, and given that Anthony Albanese during the election said absolutely to that exact question, it seems that the government is hedging its language this time around.
I don't see how that's hedging in any way, shape or form. I really don't. We don't want people to go backwards. If their wages aren't keeping up with the prices, they're going backwards.
Does the journalist have a point there? Because Albanese did say absolutely to the same question before being elected.
Well, I mean, you've only got to read into that. I mean, if you listen to his language during the election campaign, you listen to his language now, they're not overly dissimilar. But the one difference is Mr Albanese is not up for election. And we saw during the election campaign, he'll say absolutely anything that he thinks that he needed to say to get elected. He's probably being a little bit more circumspect now because there's not an election in the coming weeks. But, I mean, I think the thing that you've really got to say here is that, of course everybody wants to see wages go up, but we want to see real wages go up, not just, nominal wages. And this government has got to stop fuelling inflation. And by fuelling inflation, we're actually seeing wages go backwards. So, the idea that somehow just, whacking a minimum wage increase into the marketplace without looking at productivity, not looking at all the other things that go into a strong economy is just a recipe for fueling more inflation. So I'd really like to see this government actually take a much more considered view about how we're going to make sure that particularly our lowest paid workers are able to get real wage increases But at the same time, we have to build a strong economy, and that clearly is not what's happening at the moment.
Yeah, it's a balancing act, isn't it? Before I let you go, I want to ask you about Medicare. The latest data suggests the erosion of the rebate is hitting the most vulnerable Australians the hardest, close to, I think, so many years of freeze. Does the government need to take a serious look at this in the upcoming budget? How do we fix it?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that we had a strengthening Medicare task force that came down with a review, a number of recommendations. Not one of them dealt with the real issue that's before us at the moment, and that is workforce shortages. And until we are actually able to address workforce shortages, it's very difficult to deal with anything else. We just simply don't have the GPs. But equally, I think, this government went to the election, they said they were going to strengthen Medicare, and so far all we've seen them do is weakening Medicare. Bulk billing rates are plummeting. We're starting to see cuts to Medicare. We've seen, telehealth services have been, 70 of them being cut. We've had mental health sessions, cut in half. This week we saw, once again, heart health checks look like they probably won't be funded going forward. We've had drugs taken off the PBS. I mean, all of these things add to a government who's made a whole heap of promises and now is finding it almost impossible to deliver them.
Yeah, it paints a dire picture. Anne Ruston, Shadow Health Minister, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Erin.